when you are aligned, and it's something I've seen over and over for me anyway, in my experience, opportunities start opening up that you never would have expected.
What if the key to building a fulfilling career wasn't a plan, but a practice of listening to yourself? Welcome to Vet Life Reimagined. Our guest, Dr. Teresa Woolard, has done a lot in her career path: pharmaceutical sales, veterinary medicine, book publishing, animal behavior, personal development, and now artificial intelligence. But she'd be the first to tell you none of it was mapped out in advance. It all came from one consistent habit: knowing her values, noticing when something wasn't aligned with them, and being brave enough to move. In addition to being a wife, mom, and a creative, Teresa is a veterinarian, author, entrepreneur, and founder of the Clinic Amplifier, a platform built to help veterinary practices grow through AI, automation, and smarter marketing. Teresa and I both believe in a possibilities mindset, and with the desire to empower others, she wrote the book Dig, Leap, Play to turn everything she's learned into a simple framework for meaningful change, using some of the same principles we use to train animals. In this conversation, we talk about her winding career path, the business and communication skills veterinary professionals often underestimate, what veterinary clinics are missing right now, and why evolving personally and professionally is always worth it. Let's get to the conversation with Dr. Teresa Woolard. You did not know veterinary medicine was the path right from the womb, as some people feel like it is. So, do you mind sharing a little bit about your journey up to the point where you realize, oh, maybe veterinary medicine is for me?
Oh my, how much time do we have? Well, I always loved animals and medicine and, human body, animal. My first pet was at age 9, and her name was Shelly. She was a Sheltie, and she was my best friend. I couldn't wait to get home from school and pet her, brush her teeth, train her. So we spent a lot of time together, and yeah, she was just a pal. And so I think from that stage on, I knew it was either going to be medicine or veterinary medicine. And I got into veterinary medicine, although I did have a degree before that in biochemistry at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario. I'm from Canada. But yeah, I went into veterinary medicine and specializing in small animal. And I had a special interest in both animal behavior as well as dermatology. But because I'd already had a degree before that, I didn't want to really specialize because, the time ticking, you also want to have children. It's such a balancing act, right? With wanting to be a mom and a career woman. So I practiced as an associate veterinarian. And after about 8 years or so in practice, and I worked at a couple of different clinics, very busy clinics around the Greater Toronto area, I just felt that there was this need to create. I've always been one to create as a young girl. I was always doing crafts. I was always writing. I was always doing pastel and charcoal drawings. And I was kind of missing that. And as you know, you can only get so fancy with a suture line, right? So I really did some exploring and self-reflection. And because I had done a previous career, actually, after biochemistry, I did a couple years as a pharmaceutical sales rep in the human field. And I was seeing what they were doing for their promotional pieces. And when a sales rep came into me from an animal health company, when I was in practice in the exam room, and he had a homemade, just a piece of paper with like kind of drawings on it. And I thought, this is not acceptable compared to what I saw and have experienced in the human side. So I saw that as my opportunity to where I could maybe bring in my creative skills, my writing skills, and as well as my vet knowledge. So I actually started my own veterinary marketing company. That was probably about over 20 years ago. And I loved that because I could kind of merge both sides of my brain, the science medical side, but the creative artsy side. And at the time, assumed that vet clinic owners, they weren't quite into social media marketing and that there maybe wasn't that need or that drive then. So I actually started working with some of the animal health and pet food companies, being kind of their marketing agency. A colleague of mine heard about what I was doing after I'd been doing that for a year and a half, and she had this idea to write a book because unfortunately, her dog of 16 years had passed away. And when she was in practice, she was the wife of one of my best buds in vet school. And she had this idea, and we both talked about this as veterinarians. Parents of kids would come in and say, Fluffy died. What do I tell the kids? So it was always, as vets, we were coaching parents how to properly bring up death, because it's often the first experience to children. And so we wrote a book about to help those parents and families with children, when a pet has died. And we wrote this book while, after we put the kids to bed. And so evenings and weekends, we put this book together and it became a huge hit. We self-published it. That book is still being sold over 20 years later, and it has sold probably over 200,000 copies and been distributed across Canada through major distributors. We ended up writing 4 more books all about pet care. We were consulting for major animal health companies. We created products. It was like so fun because we truly felt we could have greater impact as veterinarians doing what we love to do, writing. I loved the creative process. And we knew we were helping families with children and pets across Canada in so many different ways. We also had a children's series. So it was really fun. But, I quickly realized that the Canadian vet industry was pretty small. And so I reached some roadblocks. And so now, fast forward, my creative journey is continuing, and I kind of got fascinated over a year and a half ago with AI, and I've never been one to be techie, but I kind of jumped in with both feet, and now my creative expression is with creating apps and tools and helping develop systems that I now can see could be really helpful for vet clinics today. And now more than ever is when they need to be building relationships with their client, maybe even more so. Certainly maybe we weren't doing it so much in COVID and maybe not so much 20 years ago, but we definitely need to be doing it more now, right? Building those relationships, building that loyalty, that trust, gaining that trust back, re-engaging with clients that maybe haven't been in over a year, 12, 18 months. So there's so many tools now available to our industry to help clinics grow and be more available and meeting clients where they're at now.
And that was a great overview. I wanna, like, go back to the beginning and, like, piece some of these together because I also wanna highlight some of the unique skill sets that are part of you and part of your journey. So, even going back to the pharmaceutical sales,
Right.
that gave you such a unique perspective on an aspect of medicine that you were able to bring forward, not only about the marketing perspective, which that is part of it. You see all the marketing that goes behind these things. You have to have conversations with doctors about them. So you have to have some type of ability to communicate
Right.
the medical aspect of things. But also back to that communication aspect. Again, I think that is what sales is communication. So all of those things are really beneficial to learn.
Mhm.
I think when you were talking with me earlier, you mentioned that, and I don't know if you were the reason that your husband got into the
See,
pharmaceutical sales
I
career, but
was.
for you, there was a moment where you decided to pivot, and that's where you got into that med.
Mhm.
I mean, great skills, but what was missing or what was it that you wanted next when you decided, "No, I'm gonna actually go to vet school," which is no little decision?
Fulfillment. I thought I was like the weirdo because everyone wanted to get into pharmaceutical sales because they treated you so well, and they did. They paid for everything, like perks and benefits more than you can imagine. But I wanted more. I wanted to be more. I wanted to create more of an impact. And I realized, and this was part of the self-reflection, if you're not doing something that is aligned to your values, you're going to be struggling emotionally and in terms of fulfillment. So I would never even take an aspirin for a headache. So why would I be pushing drug? And I know there's good reasons, but my health is my number one value. I would rather, one, I was promoting meds for high blood pressure. And it's like, well, why don't they just lose weight instead of taking drugs? Right. So it was like the easy button. And I struggled with promoting something that I maybe didn't 100% believe in. And so that's hard to do day in, day out. And it was also, even though it was sales, and I'll touch in why that sales is also very an important skill in veterinary medicine. But here I thought, because I love being around people too. As much as I loved animals, I love being around people. I'm just one of those, I love connecting. And it was a very lonely business because I was on the road driving by myself. And I guess I just wasn't good company for myself because I got very lonely. So it wasn't what I expected. So my expectation was very different of being kind of a person on the road doing sales, what it really looked like. And I guess I just didn't, it wasn't what I was expecting. So I pivoted because I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy, even though like the money was my gravy, like they paid for everything. That said something about the need for me to find something that really, gets at my heart and that I'm passionate about and that I enjoy doing. And I feel it has, and it can create an impact and is practical and all those good things. Right. So that was my reality check, that I need to make sure that I'm doing something that brings good for others. Oh, I think I loved being in the exam room with the pet owner because, again, I connected. And this is where the sales piece, so I'll finish that loop too. I think the sales, just being able to listen and communicate and connect with people, with every clinic I worked at as an associate veterinarian, they all said, I had the highest average transaction fee. And it wasn't because I'm trying to sell the pet owner, it's because I connected so quickly with them. They trusted me. So when we would and work on together, like a plan for their pet, we did it together. And I listened and I empathized and I would explain and I would take time with them. So I think all these things are so important now today, probably more so, is, listening and connecting, having a bit of small talk at the beginning. So, like we said at the beginning, that building that trust, that relationship, that even though people go into vet med because of the animals, as you and I both know, it's very much a people business. And so communication skills, very important. And it is a business. So over the course of my career, I also realized not only am I opportunistic, I am entrepreneurial. I understand business. I own businesses in a number of realms and even industries. So I get the business part. So even as an associate veterinarian, you have to realize that you are part of the business and bringing in revenue for your own good, but also for the health of the clinic. I worked with a clinic owner always said, a profitable business is a healthy business. So the clinic needs to be profitable in order for you to still be able to work there. So yeah, communication skills, I think, in fact, I worked as a national project manager for a vet management company recently, and going in to help clinics with their protocols and workflows and helping with efficiency. And I was quite surprised at how there was quite a lack of communication skills from what I saw in the clinics that I went into, as well as leadership skills. So again, those soft skills we can't ignore. They're important in this industry as much as any other business. So anything we can do to be better listeners, better communicators, better leaders within the clinic and even for our community, I think it's just going to help. It's going to help your business for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, I was surprised because I've always felt I was someone who I could take it all. I'm superwoman, right? I can be the super mom and the super career woman. But I tell you, when you're going through it, yeah, I had my children, they were only 18 months apart, and we were living in a town is a very popular town and a lot of families. So it was really hard to get into daycare. So we were on a wait list, and my son was 21 months and my daughter was 3 months old. And I got the call that they had an opening. I wanted to have both kids in the same daycare. And it was a difficult decision. It's like, oh man, this is too early to start back when she's only 3 months old. My daughter was only 3 months old. But I also knew there weren't going to be maybe many opportunities. So I decided to go back to work early, and it was really emotionally tough. And I think that was part of the reason why when I realized, after I would drop my 3 month and 21-month-old off at daycare, just in tears every morning before going to work, and I'd be the first vet in at 8:30, and my husband this is the time he was doing international marketing in the pharmaceutical company, so he'd be gone for, like, 3 weeks at a time, so I didn't have that extra help. Maybe it was just bad timing, I don't know, but it finally caved on me, and I felt like I can't do it all. And the realization that what am I doing? I'm driving myself and it was affecting my health. I had lost 12 pounds that year without even trying. I couldn't eat because I think I was just so stressed trying to do it all. Be there for my children as much as I could, yet still, try to get them prepared and off to daycare and then be the first vet at the clinic. And I just accepted it. That was the way it was. I was an associate vet and I didn't question or ask for a change of hours, but I just did what I thought was what I had to do. And I was working full time. And day in, day out, it started wearing me down. And I just realized the wake up call was my health. I was ignoring it. And that was when I did that I need to take a pause here and really think about what I want to do because I was quite literally miserable because of the situation that we'd put ourselves in, part of our fault. We were in a very expensive area that we were living in, and then daycare wasn't cheap either. It was like a second mortgage. So I think just everything all at once. But in hindsight, Megan, I think in a way, maybe it was all meant to be because I took that time and realized, I had this is when I had the idea for the marketing business, but I was so emotionally and physically spent by the time I'd be coming home, to be like 8:30 at night after I got the kids to bed. It's like, I don't have any mental bandwidth to do anything on this business idea of mine that I had, with this home-based marketing business in the vet industry. And so that's when I had a chat with my husband and said, we have to make a change here, or I think my health was going to get worse. And this is what I mean about being aligned with your values, because health is my number one value. And so I decided to go down to part-time practice and started my veterinary marketing business part-time. And we moved like an hour and a half away. No family was around. We chose to do that because it was cheaper place to live and I could afford to go part-time. So we made those decisions as hard as they were at the time. But once we did, it was like, oh, this was like the best decision we could have ever done. I was so much happier. I was able to be there for my children. I could do my creative part and it just exploded. And I was healthier, happier. So they're hard decisions sometimes at the time, but in hindsight, it was the right decision for me, for my family. And so I think when you do it for the right reasons, health, family, whatever your values are, it's the right decision. And then when you are aligned, and it's something I've seen over and over for me anyway, in my experience, opportunities start opening up that you never would have expected. After work doing my marketing company, and I'm working with printers, editors, graphic designers, doing work with big animal health. I created a national survey, a qualitative veterinary survey that then helped animal health and pet food companies better market to veterinarians. So that's when my colleague reached out after her dog had died, and we decided to partner in creating that first book and then 5 more books and consulting and building products. It just mushroomed. We ended up selling 400,000 copies of our books across Canada. People knew, like, our children's series, the main character of our book was even considered for a syndicated show. Like, it was
Oh,
crazy, yes. And my partner, she is a pet grief counselor, still doing that business 20 years later,
oh wow.
and just wrote a chapter in a vet tech end of life textbook for the vet industry that was just launched not too long ago.
Wow, she's serving so many different audiences, everything from the pet parents to now technicians, and
Yes.
that's so neat. And you already mentioned there's that impact. Like you are touching more people
Yes.
in a different way than one-on-one in a clinic, and that is what's giving you fulfillment.
Yes.
And I forgot to ask, but I'm sure this comes in probably daily now, but you had mentioned that you've also been an avid learner, especially around personal growth and development. And you said you were even reading this in high school, early
Yeah.
college time, would read the personal development books. And you also talked about like you would read them, you would absorb them, but then you would go back on the shelf and there, nothing super tangible. Yes.
Like, part of my library.
I still think that that is you read them and so it is going into your brain, right? Like sometimes it's about your behavior that you keep surrounding yourself with these things. It starts to come out in your beliefs and your
Yeah.
actions. And I think that's also a big part of the book that you wrote. I don't think you've mentioned it yet. The book you wrote, which I know there's a whole story there,
Yeah.
but you mentioned you had an interest in behavior when you got into veterinary
Yeah.
practice, so
I took a lot of extra courses after I graduated because I was seeing, like, really poor behavior is like the number one killer of pets. We had some really good animal behaviorists at the Ontario Veterinary College, but also I followed the late Dr. Sophia Yin. I loved her work. And, anything I could do to help pet owners better understand animal behavior, I was always advocating for doing early training. And I started seeing analogies between, I was a student of personal development for years. Like, oh my God, I was a sponge for personal development, just feeding your mind with the right things, right? And I would reread books because it could change our own behaviors. And then when I studied more animal behavior, I'll never forget this day. I don't even remember if it was a specific case that I was working on, but all of a sudden something hit me, felt almost like upside the head. That is like, I was in the exam room, I was like, geez, how can we can use simple animal behavior technique, classical conditioning, positive reinforcement, successive approximation type of techniques with animals to change them from bad behavior to good. Yet humans struggle so much with change. And even though we have so much personal development, I would find myself sometimes, as you mentioned, I'd read these books, they'd almost be like, oh, so overwhelming, too much, too complicated. And so I'd put it on the shelf and it's like, okay, I'll get back to that another day. And so, kind of trying to take all this information, knowledge that I knew over the years and that and human personal development, self-help, and thought, well, why aren't we adopting some of the things that we do with animals for people, keeping it simple, doable? Maybe they'll actually make change and it won't be so daunting and over complicated and overwhelming. So that was the idea 12 years ago to write my book, kind of personal development with an animal twist. And so it's really resonating with pet lovers because it is bringing in, some of the animal behavior techniques also to kind of help teach them a little bit of animal behavior if they need it, but also just looking at it in a different way is distilling it down to simple, basic, bite-sized steps that I talk about for if people want to make a change or take action, that we should be also rewarding ourselves along the way with little treat, mini reward, and then have a major reward at the end. And then doing the dig was part of my own experience was making sure you're doing something that is aligned with you and your values, your special gift. I believe everyone has a special gift that we should be sharing with the world, whether volunteering, part-time hobby, career, whatever, business. So I wrote that book and it's called Dig Leap Play. It's the three-step framework to help humans be better humans or be able to chase those dreams, achieve your dreams using some of the similar techniques and metaphors that we use with our animal friends.
To me, it's kind of bringing a lot of your skills and, like you said, your values together.
Mhm.
All the things that you're doing to help the veterinary world, whether it's business, whether it's practice, identifying what you want.
Mhm.
Again, you're very good at self-reflecting and you can help people go through that, but it doesn't need to be complicated, right? Like, yes, some of these things you're gonna have to think about, but we can make it simple and straightforward and we have that guide,
Mhm.
then we're more likely to be able to do it because we haven't made it complicated, where then it's easy to say, "Well, that's too complicated. I'll just put it aside."
Mhm.
But you're making a lot more possible through that.
Yes, and I just actually had a little interview, coffee date with a woman that was at one of my talks that I did a few months ago, and the title of the talk was "You Can Teach an Old Dog New Tricks." And it was to a group of retired persons, about 60 of them, and she was in the audience, and she's in her 60s, and she was humming and hawing, overthinking it about maybe going back and reinstating her real estate license. And she was invited to this talk. I guess the board member had mentioned about me coming in as a speaker. He talked me up. And so that was the reason she came, was because he talked so much about me as a speaker coming in. And she was in the audience and she got so motivated. And I shared this same framework. I brought in about even the whole just learning in later life can we could build new neurons in our brain with neuroplasticity, and I talked about good nutrition and rest and continuing to learn. And she got motivated and she sent me an email about a month ago saying that my talk inspired her to go back and get her real estate license. She got registered. She's now a full-fledged agent. And yeah, she's so excited. And I recorded our sessions yesterday. So I'm looking to share that and help other, especially women in midlife, mid-career that are thinking they're at a pivot stage and kind of using a similar framework, this same framework, dig, leap, play, keeping it simple. And she said the same thing, like she was imposter syndrome, talking to so many times, putting negative messages in her head, and she had to consciously not overthink it and just do it. Even she said, taking that one step at a time, those bite-sized steps, you build your confidence from the action. So by taking that action, leaping in bite-sized steps, you can get there. It was, again, feeling that impact that your words, your message, which bringing in that animal piece, but it stuck with her. It was memorable. It was simple, and she believed she could do it. And that's what I say, if your pet can do it, you can do it. So it's all about helping inspire and empower people to take those leaps, even if later in life, I'm an example of that. So it's never too late to begin again, and it's never too late to start. So if something's pulling at your heart that, you have this desire to do, you have this whim, like I was a year ago with wanting to learn more about AI, a fascination, a curiosity, go with it. Be that curious cat, right? And go for it. You never know what it's going to lead to, right? Don't put that lid on yourself. There's so much to explore, or like just listening to your body and your inner voice, your gut instinct, your animal instinct, I call it. Listen to your animal instinct and go with it. And you can do it part time. You could do it just on the side. Just start exploring. You might be surprised at what doors can open, your outlook on life, your perspective. She was smiling throughout the whole interview yesterday, and she's had, like, health struggles as well, but she is in such a happy place, and she's so glad that she took that leap and went back, and she's in her 60s. So, good example there, right?
Yeah. And like you said, when you start leaning into what feels right and start doing and acting upon it, that's when opportunities start to arise.
Yes.
And there's so many things can change and we grow and we want to do new things and the world changes. And so there's, opportunities that come up. You mentioned AI, which was a great example of the world is changing. And so you can understand needs in a particular environment, like a veterinary clinic,
Yes.
be able to lean in, learn more about AI, and feed the curiosity. We share that value as well. And you never know what happens. And like here you are. So yeah, so share more about that because AI is definitely a hot topic. A lot of changes going on in the world. I'd love to hear what you have learned and what you are putting together that's going to be launching very soon.
Yeah, so like I said, I just kept getting pulled. It was like this magnetic pull into like, I want to learn more about this. And I had never been a techie person, Megan, like honest to God, over my life. Never a techie person. But I kept being drawn to this, that curiosity. So I started learning and taking classes. I'm in a certification program. And I became more and more fascinated by the capabilities, the tools, again, just being able to explore my creativity with it. And you actually really need to, it's like Play-Doh, you need to play with it. You can't just read about it. You can't just like, yes, I've spent hours, hundreds of hours watching YouTube videos, but it doesn't really cement it until you do it. I've gotten to a point now, I've kind of jumped in with both feet. And having been a project manager and also being an associate vet for, almost 20 years in practice, and what I saw more recently as a project manager and just some of the inefficiencies, this is where I see where AI and automation can really help clinics who are wanting to grow. And I know that's on the radar for this year for a lot of veterinarians is to grow their clinic. But we got to be careful because our teams are already in many cases are being stretched as it is. We can't put necessarily more workload on our team members. But this is where AI and automation can come in and help pick up that slack, especially if it's things like repetitive admin type of tasks, answering calls, after hours, on weekends, on holidays, so we don't miss those calls. Being able to do some of the repetitive work that is taking current team members' time, where that could be better spent working with the client, doing the client facing, spending more time having a conversation, building that relationship, that loyalty, yet let the AI and automation handle some of the other stuff that is burdensome and keeping us there till 8 o'clock at night. So I would just implore people, veterinarian clinic owners, practice managers, hospital directors, to be more open and accepting and play with AI and someone like myself. And I know that like I've invested a lot of hours and time in learning this, that I know business owners won't have time to do this on their own. I get it. So I am launching a system. It's a 5-part system to deal with some of those repetitive tasks that can be done for them. It's like a sales and marketing platform separate from their practice management system that kind of just integrates and works alongside your practice management system, but helps with the parts that they're not addressing, like reaching out to your dormant clients, helping with your online reviews. It's all automated because, there's so much statistics around. If you can increase even by 1 star review on your Google reviews, that could be anywhere from 5 to 9% increase in revenue. Missing one call could be $250 to $400 worth of revenue, which amounts to about 100,000 a year. So it's important not to miss these calls, but we can't, we're only human, right? So this is where we can leverage AI and automation to help with these things, save money, bring in revenue at no extra workload for the team. So it just makes sense. We're at this stage for many clinics, both in not only North America, but globally, that I'm hearing that there's chaos, some are in crisis, that I really think this could be a sensible solution for vet clinics worldwide. And I would love to be a part of that and help clinics because of my business acumen, background, understanding of communication, and now AI and automation. I'm not Miss Tech Worldwide yet, but I know enough to be dangerous. And I've partnered with a team that are influencers in this world, AI world. And that's who I've partnered with to help implement some of these things for clinics. So I'm kind of the go-between. I understand what the behind the scenes are. I know what happens with running a business and where we need to improve on for vet clinics and where I can help bring some results and solutions very seamlessly with an integrated system that I'm about to launch very quickly. But they can read about it on my website, clinicamplifier.com. And I have some really fun tools for the industry as well that I would love to share. And so I'd be happy to help clinic owners, better understand and see if it's something that they would like to adopt for their clinic as well.
I know you've researched this so much that you probably have looked at some of the other offerings in the market right now that are talking about AI. And so just to maybe help people better understand more about how to know how to assess different options out there to really connect to their genuine needs. Can you speak more to maybe like what inspired you specifically and that can kind of illustrate the type of person, the type of challenges that you picture when you're like building this and wanting to reach out?
Well, like I said, when I was working in clinic, I'd spend like 5 days, 2 weeks at a clinic as a third party, or you see the outside perspective. Cause I think when you're in the weed, running your business or working in the clinic, you're just focused on what you need to do right then and there. But someone kind of watching kind of in the background, you see the misses, you see the missed calls, like daylight, 2 receptionists, but they're not at the desk, and no one's answering the calls. People still doing Post-it notes, and so lots of opportunities for miscommunication, right? Clients not getting called back. We're not doing social media marketing to bring in new clients or to connect with our current clients on social media or email marketing to so I'm a marketing girl and a communication girl, and I love being able to keep the clients in the loop, and we also need to be that face of pet education in our community. So again, why we need to be marketing and being out there, we need to be more visible because otherwise a more tech savvy competitor who's maybe barking more might get those clients. We need to step up and kind of do that work that maybe we haven't been doing. Some of those, by reaching out to our clients and leveraging AI. So having something on our website that can answer some of their questions and capture that lead and book the appointment. So instead of having your website just be a digital brochure, it can actually work for you. If we incorporate some of the technology right even on your website. So yeah, I saw a lot as a project manager, just with that business hat on and seeing the loopholes, the gaps, the leaks in clinics that they're not seeing. They're doing the best that they can, but there's things that we can do to patch those leaks and help our client have a better experience, keep the communication going and improving on it where we can. So I think that was the eye opener for me. Again, being opportunistic, I had seen the gaps. And then when I was learning AI and automation and this technology, it's like, oh, this could help here. This could help here without having to burden the team because we don't need to do that either because they're already, for the most part, tapped out. And I can't imagine clinic owners trying to learn this on their own unless it's that they're really bent that way. But it's overwhelming and it's changing every day. This is more of a system that I'm bringing in to fill the gaps in a lot of areas to help them. So, yeah, that's where I get excited. Again, it's that impact. It's helping. It's something that's very needed and it's practical and it's got incredible return on investment.
I'm gonna ask because it started all coming together for me. One of the big differences that I see in you is that marketing background. Not only are you veterinarian, because that's a very important part to have, but the ability for marketing,
Mhm.
which again is listening, knowing the audience, and communicating well.
Mhm.
That's what marketing really is understanding your audience and their needs and communicating it well.
Yes.
But also, if we think about our audience has changed, like pet ownership, especially, and even the feelings around animals, right? I think there is an evolution to that. But our pet parents they expect different things. They're evolving, their connection with their pets evolving, their expectations with how the world is changing is evolving.
Mhm.
And so and you've been part of that. You've had to because you're supporting businesses, you're sort of supporting practices. You have to understand that pet parent in addition to understanding the veterinary side of things and like all the moving parts and supporting the people within that too.
Mhm.
That's really a very unique perspective. So, any thoughts around that too? Is how times are changing, the pet parent.
Yes. So I was a keynote speaker to a group of 600 vets collectively a few months ago. And in doing some research more in depth on the statistics and expectations of pet parents today, and interestingly, millennials make up about 35% of the pet owners, and
Mhm.
you're probably one of them.
Yes.
And they expect technology. They expect to be able to book online and not have to call. They don't want to call. They won't leave a message. Only 15% of people will leave a voicemail message. So for vets who are still practicing like from 30 years ago that thinking, oh, they'll just leave a message. We have an answering machine. That's not going to cut it for a third of those pet owners right now. So we need to meet them where they're at. And that's with technology, that's with communication. As much as, yes, AI is great, but it's also gonna show that we still need that human piece. We need the human piece in our communications. In person, we also need that communication in written form. So we need to meet and be kind of everywhere, especially also online. We need to be more visible with AEO optimization coming in. Soon it's not gonna just be Google searching a vet near me. They're gonna be asking I need a vet who will work with senior pets, and so you wanna be the one that AI will recommend, right? So again, you need to be also not only in your community and there for your team and your clients, you need to be online. You need to be having a presence and being visible online, and that's through marketing, social media
Yeah.
marketing, newsletters, maybe being in your community more. So it's just you kinda have to be everywhere.
And I really resonated with the information piece too, because, pet parents, they're curious and they have easy access to information,
Right.
but it may not be the best information and it surely isn't personalized or tailored. Hopefully, as the veterinarian should know the pet and the pet parent as well. And so it's that opportunity because like where do you send people if you want them to look at certain information?
Yes.
And we don't have time to manually sit down and write information on all of that. So to have technology support us there, I think it sounds like the right direction for us to be able to create that community for pet parents and really give them the best support with the best people that really care about them and their pet.
Yeah, so even like, clinics who maybe have had a library, a client pet education library on their website, that's awesome. But again, for those tech savvy pet owners, maybe they don't want to read through all that. They just want to ask a chatbot, right? That's been trained on your clinic's information. That's where we're at. That's where we're going. And that's the expectation. So this is what I'm saying. I really implore clinic owners and hospital directors just to really be open-minded. And yes, change is prickly. We all hate it, but we're here. And if we don't start adopting, whether veterinary clinic owners or other business owners, you're going to look like a dinosaur very quickly. And if you don't have the time, then maybe bringing in people who can do it for you and at least help your business get more tech forward so that you can meet the clients where they're at and grow at the same time.
Yeah, especially for people who want to hold on to the individual private practice setting, all the more to leverage AI and outsourcing those types of
Yeah.
things to keep up with all of that.
Even just with anybody starting their own business, whether a business brand, a personal brand, it all comes from kind of full circle what we talked about right at the very beginning, your values. So every clinic should, again, do a deep dig into what do we stand for? What sets us apart? What's our unique differentiator? So again, all about it's marketing, but it's the brand. What's your brand? Clinics shouldn't look like they're like everybody else. Think about what do you do differently? What do you offer? What kind of client do you want to attract? Who's your ideal client avatar, right? So all of this will also help feed your marketing so that you do attract the right, not only client, but the right team members if you're looking to recruit. So marketing is
Right.
also smart for recruiting the right type of team members.
Oh, no, that's good. And I love a good full circle moment. So I think I strive for them. But our time has gone by so quickly. I I want to make sure I leave time. Is there anything that we have not covered that you would want to make sure that we at least mention for the veterinary audience?
I think we've touched on a lot of the important parts. Keeping an open mind to this new world of technology at our fingertips. I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone, and no question is too dumb. Like, this is all new for a lot of people. But if I can help alleviate some of the anxiety, maybe, or answer some questions. If I don't have the answers, I can certainly find out from experts that I'm aligned with. But I think just a good project. I know it's getting into busy season now, which is good, but, really thinking hard about your brand and how you stand out and how you can leverage that through marketing. And I'm happy to help with that as well because I love
Love it.
that.
Are you working Canada, US? Like, where are you? Everywhere? Okay.
Yes. Worldwide, that's the beauty of online digital marketing business. So yeah, I love it.
Awesome. Well, the question that I always love to end on, and this can be career or not career, but when I say, what is something you're most grateful for? What comes to your mind?
My mom. I'm grateful for my mom. She was my cheerleader, as much as my pets were my best friends, she was my true best friend. We always need someone, I call it your pack, in your pack that makes you be the best version of yourself. And she was that person. She's the reason I wrote this book. I dedicated the book to her. She was probably one of the best pet lovers I've ever known. And she was the one who read the first version of my book 12 years ago, loved it so much. Why I ended up having it published was because of her. And so, yeah, I'm grateful for my mom. She's not with us, as you can probably tell, because I'm breaking. But, I think if there were more people like her, it'd be a beautiful place.
That was Dr. Teresa Woolard. And if this conversation resonated with you, I hope you'll take her advice and start with one step. Dig into what you truly value, take the leap, even in bite sized pieces, and give yourself permission to play. If you want to learn more about Teresa's work in her Clinic Amplifier platform, links are in the show notes, including her book, Dig, Leap, Play. For a full summary of the key takeaways from today's episode so you don't forget them, and ways to apply them to your own career, head over to the Sprinkle of Wisdom Substack for the Podcast Club Guide. And if I haven't given you enough things to do, please subscribe and share this episode with someone in your life who needs a reminder that it's never too late to begin again. And until next time, keep reimagining what's possible in veterinary life.